Um, yeah, I am a holistic health practitioner, that's for sure. And the part of the holistic part is that it includes studies, a lot of studies in the metaphysical and the spiritual, which of course is our, part of our whole entire being. So yeah,
Hmm.
does that make sense?
Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
I studied at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, um, like early 2000s. So I have been investing myself in this education and whatever I could do to practice it for the last 20 years.
Okay, that's amazing. Um, and do you have like a good like background story? Was there things that you healed yourself from in that?
Well, the initial kickoff for studying the holistic nutrition, I mean, prior to that, I was pretty healthfully eating, very active. I was always into sports and things as a kid and very active. And but it was still a standard American diet. I can see looking back where, Thanksgiving, I'd rather eat the vegetables and the other things. I ate the meat and things like that, but I was never really like people are driven to eat meat. So
Hmm.
I had my first child in the year 2000, and eventually she started to develop a rash around her mouth. And I was fortunate, I was living in New York City or Brooklyn at that time, and we went to a pretty good holistic naturopath, and he put me on a elimination diet. So I took out all the allergens, soy, wheat, dairy, um, name it. A lot of the foods I was used to eating at that time, I was still eating dairy and cheese and things like that. They went. And I was kind of left not knowing what to eat. So I shopped at health food stores and things like that. And especially in those days, they would have big counters full of business cards and flyers and stuff in health food stores, just like a library of them. So I picked up this book. It was for the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So I read this, and I just know it sparked something in me. It didn't give me the answers about my diet because I still didn't know what I was supposed to be eating, but it did have me start to at least link into their information. Um, I mean, I found a few substitutes. Computer age was just kind of starting. There was no big research online. So a lot of my study has come from big books and lots of reading. So that was
Yeah,
it.
that's
I went through the integrative nutrition course and then did the second graduate course with it and learned a lot there. And that was really what catapulted me into changing my life. And we took care of her mouth rash, and it took care of a lot of issues for me that I hadn't addressed prior than that, like acne breakout.
yeah, I saw and as well, I almost joined that health coaching program about probably like 7 years ago. And I remember the reason I liked it was because it said that diet was not your primary source of food, like that, like emotions and your health, your mental health and your relationships, and that was your primary. Do you want to talk
Mhm.
about that a bit?
Well, I understood that. It's one thing to hear it, and then it's another thing to really live it, which is a lot of
Mhm.
things that, are the wisdom that we learn in life. So I don't know where I picked up the word holistic, quite frankly. I know that when I had my child, I was pretty set on homeschooling her. And when I came across Waldorf education, Rudolf Steiner education, and it spoke to children holistically again, like around their development. They schooled them rather than putting kids in school and having a set system that they're supposed to work through. So it was a holistic way of looking at a child and their development. So that might have been, I think, when I learned that through the Rudolf Steiner education, the holistic view of life, and he brings in spirituality a lot as well, then maybe that opened up the door for me to understand IIN and other sources of nutrition, which that's what they say. And then we would translate it to the fact that we need, as human beings, really at a basis, some other kind of nourishment and energy in living. Like that's talking about where our vitality arises. And nutrition is going to be an external source that we're bringing in. Relationships are going to be external sources that we bring in. And we can learn about those things with ourselves, but ultimately, our nourishment is developed when we learn to be able to feel it and see ourselves from within. That wasn't the way they presented it, but that's what I've learned and experienced since then. I think one of the biggest keys with them saying that right now would be able to take it and say, making good choices, being in good atmospheres, good environments, being around people who you enjoy, making time for an environment for yourself that's nurturing, taking more time out of the external. Yeah, that's a little bit how I would interpret it.
For sure. And I think too, I've heard you say on one of your YouTube videos that like diet is part of the foundation for your health, right? So I feel like once we have that foundation of good health from good diet, then we can more so enjoy those good relationships and other things in life too, right?
Yeah, I can securely say that because energetically, our diet and what we eat and our external nutrition is related to our root chakra, which we don't need to get all into that, but it's really still an energetic center on our body. So we can really understand our own bodies, not my body and your body, but what my body is dealing with, like I've inherited from what viruses, bacteria were you born with. We're all similar in our pure form of physicality, but now many people all have their own unique problems. Two people could be suffering from anxiety, but they're going to come from two different roots. So and I've seen really understanding myself and what I eat, and really having compassion for myself and wisdom with that can really reverse a lot of things very quickly, especially if you have proper information. One of the things with what I'm providing for people is a limited source of accurate information, like how to find accurate information, because there's so much confusing information out there for a person if they haven't educated themselves on themselves.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think our own body is our best teacher, hey?
Yeah, but we don't all know how to listen to it very well. We all walk around with plenty of symptoms that get ignored, that are small, we might brush off just in the day-to-day life for whatever reasons. And getting to know our bodies through what we eat, but also through physical activity. With the Qigong that I've done, I've practiced quite a bit of yoga for a while, and becoming internally body aware. And now I've gone back into weight training and things like that. That awareness also, it solidifies your energy in your middle, where when you start to make a mistake or something, then you start to get more feedback from all the different systems of your body. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, it's a lot easier to listen to your body naturally when it's in a more natural state with natural foods and natural ways to move your body, right?
Yeah, you have a reference. There's a reference. If you've eaten
Mhm.
naturally for long enough and you've been able to be in nature sometimes and know what it's like to be around quiet, know what it's like to be around people who care for you, then there's a reference point, and there's less of a emotional reaction and there's less like mental chatter about it. You know, you stop ruminating. That's what causes anxiety. People can get caught in their heads going, oh, well, what she said that and that said that. And the natural state, you can notice it. Oh yeah, I don't need to be part of all that.
Did you notice when you first transitioned to a more raw diet or a more plant-based diet that that helped you to deepen spiritually or to feel better mentally and emotionally?
Yeah, I have to say, since we're on an audience that might relate to this, I had uh gone through and healed bulimia from my late teens. And that wasn't necessarily done. I mean, I wouldn't have a phone like this or flip phones. It was nothing like what we all know today with social media. So I did that through more therapeutic measures. But I self-diagnosed myself with that and decided I didn't want to be part of that anymore. So that was a good struggle. It was a good education to come through. And what was the question? I was doing a backtrack
More
because
so if your mental health improved and your spirituality deepened when you ate
oh,
healthier.
the food, you know, during that time, I think it's a really like the strongest part is um still like the quality of the food. Like people could be eating animal foods and things like that, but if you're not in balance with those foods, then your body's not going to be in balance. And if it's a bad quality, your body's not going to have good quality. I made the decision to go all the way. I took out dairy from my diet because I was sat with a healer and he said, you just need to stop drinking dairy. So I listened to this man. He could see, he knew what he was talking about. And any acne I dealt with through my teens, it went away. That was it. Dairy gone, acne gone, period. Um, so obviously I went deeper with that and I made the decision to eat only a vegan diet. Um, based on what my teacher at that time, Stuart Wilde, he's a metaphysician. And he said, well, all the spiritual warriors that I know are raw vegan. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So I went for it that way. I'd already started studying meditation and things like that. So it was enough of an impetus. And I'd already eliminated a lot of animal foods and dairy at that point anyway. So, and I felt well, like when I did the elimination diet, for instance, I lost a lot of weight and I was also nursing. So I knew what it was like to take those things out, but I never put them together. So when I finally started to make that transition to be like, I'm only eating plant foods, again, there was no, I had books for raw vegan learning and things like that. There wasn't much on the computer. Um, it was it was less mental. Again, like when we do it here on social media, which a lot of people are making it mental before they make it physical. I think I took it more physical and then mentally could make the connections of what was happening for me. Um, yeah, yeah,
Of course. I know a lot of people will go to, say, a vegan diet for health reasons, and then once they experience that and are more like open energetically, they end up being more ethical vegan too, just like seeing the cruelty with animals, right?
right. These things, I think, appear to us then in our lives. You're given the opportunity to make more of a connection with life and with the earth, which is part of a lot of my impetus and what's kept me consistent, made it easy. Yeah.
What was the book that was your favorite?
Well, the first one that I treated almost like a Bible was the David Wolf's Sun Food Diet System, Raw Food Sun Food Diet System. It's a big, huge book, and there's a portion of it that talks about raw foods, but a good part of it also is a journey of self-development and self-questioning. David Wolf was a lot of the first uh, ways that I went. And I also used a cookbook by this woman, Renee. Um, She has a German last name, I forget.
Descartes.
Hmm?
Descartes. Rene
Well, she's
Descartes.
gotten married again since her book published. It's just called Living Foods, and it was a gourmet living foods book. But that was all enough for me to have a guide, because the Sun Food Diet Success System had like a kind of laid out guide of like, okay, follow this a bit. So that's what I did. I'd gotten into juicing. I've had a juicer for years and years and years, and a blender for a long time. And then the creative part with kids was having that other, a little bit more high with the nuts, making the raw vegan desserts like lemon poppy seed raw vegan desserts. So that really kept me going in that direction. It was healthy enough for me at that point. I
Did
didn't,
you raise your kids on a raw vegan diet?
they got a lot of raw vegan food. We ate things too, like soy milk and soba noodles and vegetables, a lot of vegetables. One of my kids' favorite foods was collard greens. I mean, so we had a very active life, but I didn't think to myself, oh, I'm going to have raw vegan kids. I just served them what I knew nourished me.
Mhm.
And we had fun making it. I mean, making a raw vegan pizza with a dehydrator is a lot of fun, because there's so much that the kids can do. They can, like, it's like easy bake oven. They can make the dough, put the stuff on. They can use the tools to make everything, and then they could even make it in the little oven without any. So it's very fulfilling in all the ways. Everybody finished eating, and we felt good after we finished eating. And that took us into, I was always trying to keep a garden to some extent, even in the mountains of Colorado, growing kale and things like that, to keep them grounded in this world. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have fun with your food and to be able to enjoy your meal and the time after, right?
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, we were having a great time. I mean, later on down the line, it was brought up, and I know this has happened to other people who are vegetarian or even vegan. I had issues with their father. I raised my kids as a single mom when working and doing all this. And in the courts, part of what came up was it was neglectful for me to feed them the way I was feeding them, which is not true, which we all know is not true.
It's the opposite, right? It would be a little more neglectful to just hand them the ramen and McDonald's.
Still, this world is still totally acceptable to drive to McDonald's, and that's a perfect meal for your child.
Balanced.
Yeah. How is it? Can you see me in my video? Or am I just this is shadow?
It's a little bit darker. Is there a way to maybe, if you turn with the sun in front of your face, like if you've turned around, then it will be a lot brighter on your face.
Yeah, I did that, and then
Because I know like the
yeah,
sun's behind you, but if you put the sun in front of you, like
yeah,
completely
it's just that my
around, then
background. My background wasn't so great that
that's
way.
okay. At least we could see your face better.
Was it really dark that whole time?
Um, sometimes it would come in and out.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Do you
thank you.
want to try turning fully around and see if it looks better? Looks
I
brighter?
can't. The table. That there's no table over here.
Oh, okay. That's good
The
then.
table's here. The sun's there.
So how long has it been? Did you go vegan before you went raw vegan?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was definitely. I mean, I remember each step of the way. At one point, I was like, I don't want to eat meat anymore, and that was when my friend actually in high school, like when I was 16, she's like, I don't want to eat meat anymore. I was like, I don't want to eat meat anymore. So from that point, from the age of 16, which is about 40 years ago, I was slowly making steps in that environment to eat less meat. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a diet that works really well for people, even if it's not fully raw, is to just be eating like a lot of fruits and vegetables, if not all fruits and vegetables, and be getting like the majority of your carbohydrates from the fruits rather than just grains and beans, you know?
Yeah, I think that's one of the important transitions. I really think that most people these days eating the meat is falls into the category of greed, because at this point we all know that we can have full nutrition on a plant-based diet, and that's not even taking a side. That's just pure based scientific information, experienced stuff from information, experiential, and it comes just naturally from the cycle of life on the earth. But also from the grains, being able to rely and eat more fruit and things like sweet potatoes is a huge transition, because I think the grains too, they can pull a lot of minerals out if you've over processed grained yourself and over processed oiled yourself, kind of thing. Yeah, it's huge,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
huge.
step by step for sure. The like whole rice and quinoa would be a lot better than just refined wheat all the time. But then taking the next step and having more potatoes for your carbohydrates definitely feels even better.
It feels better, and I think it expands once somebody is interested in the nutrition behind a bowl of rice and the nutrition behind some steamed potatoes, let's say, and the difference with bananas, and they've gotten all of the stereotypes out of their negativities about food out of their brain, then and you can open yourself to eating the right nutrition. You can see, well, a bowl of rice is good because I'm really hungry right now, and that's all there is,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be fine. And then know that, oh, if my digestion isn't feeling so great, eating some bananas and maybe some steamed potatoes, knowing these elements, that was what, like learning at the counseling school, besides how to actually work with people, which is 50% of the whole game, is the energetics of food. I've done a lot of studying into the Eastern philosophies of nutrition with all the elements as well. Um, that would be Eastern, like Chinese Eastern. Not, I've done some Ayurvedic studies, but at the IAN school, we went through and learned about all these different systems a bit. So you got a wider perspective of what is sitting in front of you, because everything's just energy in the end.
Of course. What was one of the biggest things that you learned through like your studies that you still apply today?
Oh my gosh. It was such a huge course. Listening to people, listening. To be able to help somebody, you need to be able to listen. I have to be able to listen properly, and it's through the heart, and it's learning to control one's own mind around listening to somebody else. Because once your mind and emotions are calmed down, then you can listen to yourself. I can listen to myself. I can listen to somebody else and hear a little bit deeper what they might need, what's going on. They might need to lose weight, but some of the keys, to unlock some of the issues are a little bit deeper, and it's not scary. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's not like some psychological trap. So I think that was really big key. And the learning the energetics of food and experimenting with what I was eating, and joy, like looking for happiness. But I've always been a pretty happy person, even in the worst circumstances. I surprised myself. So I guess that rubbed off as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that always helps other people feel happy too. It's never selfish to love yourself or to spread the joy, right?
Well, I never thought about it. Again, it was never like, I didn't grow up with, on the thing saying, oh, let's do some self-care now. I just did what I did. Um, it was in the school too, though. I met a holistic healer, an energetic healer, and I studied with him. And that was very important too, because I learned very deep meditation. I learned how to read people energetically, like do, mm, it's like medical energetics, like to be able to sit with somebody and see walk them through meditation, but also see what might be happening in their body a bit with disorders. So that was very impactful, meeting this healer.
There's a lot that we can't really explain with words that goes a lot deeper.
Yeah, it's good to be able to. It's really good to be able to have a space for somebody or a community where other people have at least the sophistication to listen without judgment. So then everybody's new experiences of opening up to these things that don't always have vocabulary for, you can express it, and then you can own it. It's good.
Yeah, people want to be understood and to understand, right?
Yeah, deep down we want acceptance. That's the basic human need and want, really, is to be accepted. Yeah.
Yeah, and when we first accept ourselves, that's when other people start to accept you easier as well.
It helps, doesn't it? It does help. Thankfully we have, I don't know, maybe you have, it seems like perhaps you probably had people accepting you in your life that just accepted it for you, even though you were having a hard time accepting yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there is that if they're people that are close to you, but I find anybody that has an insecurity, they might end up projecting that, and people end up judging them, and it's really them judging themselves.
It can get complicated, yeah. But if we can at least appreciate each other for our acceptance of one another, that's a good start. If you have a parent or a brother or sister who just, gets you, that's cool.
Um, do you choose now to include some cooked foods like cooked veggies?
I did for a very long time, and then I had been diagnosed with Lyme's like 20 years ago when it was starting, and I had to finally get some proper information about that only about 2 years ago about it, because my digestion really something was really going wrong. So I was having some strange inflammation. I was really, really tired, and I was eating raw vegan. Um, and actually just also spent time in Ecuador, like in a fruit raw foods community there. So that moved me into finding the information from Medical Medium. And with that, I saw, it's been about a year and a half. I saw great results with that. So with that, I incorporated the steamed potatoes in because of their healing properties and energetics. I did most of his healing things with raw vegan food, but the steamed sweet potato and the steamed potato, I just decided, yeah, let's do that. And it has worked. And since I've done that, I can see my attitude. There was definitely a resistance. So I'm not going to eat cooked food. Oh, I can't stand the smell of it or something. It brought up other things like that sometimes. But I can confidently sit and say that bringing these things in are very helpful for anybody dealing with, chronic fatigue, even anxiety, digestive issues. Right now, I might have a steamed vegetable now and again because sometimes I was like, I just couldn't eat a raw cauliflower at a certain time of night, but I knew I was hungry. So it's kind of not a good idea sometimes once you've done I think once you've been on a raw food diet, at least I think this is what happened. It's a good idea to look at what your body's saying for the changes. Like instead of foregoing the food because it's not raw, it's saying I better have the nutrition of some cauliflower that's slightly steamed than not eat at all.
It's
Yeah, to
interesting
keep things
because
balanced.
like I've been raw vegan like 3 years because it's just like no other animal is cooking its food. But there is the fact that like it is still natural. Like the fire has always been with humans. And when it's like a vegetable, it's a lot easier to cook that than it is to gather lots of grains. Like that's a little bit more complicated, but it can't be too hard to just cook a potato on a fire. So, and I do notice too, because I did eat a lot of just cooked veggies and fruits before I went raw. that there wasn't too much of a difference. It's more so the difference when you take out the dairy and the animal products, right?
I agree. I agree. It's like fine tuning. It's a lot of fine tuning with what's happening in your life, what your body has decided to heal. I think, especially if you start off with for a few years of raw vegan, your body's going to heal certain levels, and then it might start digging deeper, and it might dig up something out of your liver or something that your body throws off your digestion, or you come across a virus in the bathroom. Any virus. There's plenty out there. And then you're thrown off. So being able to have the sophistication, the maturity to say, oh, I'm not feeling like eating that giant salad tonight. I can't eat it again. My body's not digesting it properly. And then picking up some healthy options, like you said, that pick a fruit or a vegetable rather than go, okay, forget, I'm just gonna get a cinnamon roll and a coffee and I'll feel much better.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Because a
It's
cinnamon roll and a coffee is like sometimes a memory that flashes back to me. I'm like, oh, that was good. Yeah, I can't do that.
yeah, I think if anybody's eating too many heavy processed foods, they're gonna need that coffee for their energy. I
It's
find with
essential.
raw food that the only veggies that are easy to digest is just like fruits and leafy greens. As soon as you're starting to have cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and the cauliflower, it's just so slow to digest. And those foods taste really good when you cook them, and they don't taste as good raw. So that kind of shows like they're also healthier when they're cooked. Maybe we are meant to cook our foods a bit, hey?
Yeah, that it's like coming from two directions. One, if we've eaten a lot of processed foods and like abused caffeine, and alcohol, there's plenty of things that we go through all these years eating that way, and then we think in 2 years our body's just gonna like go, oh yeah, I want to be raw vegan. But in eating those processed foods and those stimulants and whatever not else that's happened, you've probably deteriorated the digestive enzymes anyway in your stomach and your body's ability to really like muscle through a food like broccoli and cauliflower. They are slower digesting for sure. But at the same time, it's almost like a test to the body going, oh, my body's not burning through that cauliflower. I have to keep working with it, keep working with my digestion. I found after I spent about a year practically in bed, like I could barely move. Um, and finally I started being able to move more again and decided I wanted to really just push myself into exercise. I felt like I'd given my nerves that were damaged a chance to heal through the rest. And then digging into the exercise. So the exercise is really vital as well in a raw food diet because of the amount of carbohydrates and stuff, but also for the digestion. You're getting things, you're sweating, getting the liver oxygen, which helps your digestion. So yeah, if somebody's struggling with that, I would push towards getting more physical with it.
Yeah, it moves your lymph and your digestion and your bowels. You're gonna feel way better. What kind of yoga do you do?
I had studied with one woman a lot of vinyasa, but she had done Ashtanga, and then I also just kept with the Ashtanga yoga. It was always kind of like my foundation, or it was drawn to. Um, yeah, I didn't think it was the first woman I studied with. She felt very much like yoga from India. Like it was not segregated so much. It was very spiritual and really great flow. And then the Ashtanga yoga, if we all know what that is, it's very systematic and more, what would you say, athletic, I would say.
Masculine?
Hmm?
Masculine?
Ashtanga yoga could be very masculine. I mean, there's of course yin yoga, which is going to be further the other direction. But yeah, and then I stopped doing group yoga. I do some at least a couple times a week because I feel there's some movements in yoga that you don't really get, especially in resistance training and things like that. My body, I notice is like, where's that other movement that we need?
I do Ashtanga and Yin yoga as well. That's the main that I teach because it just balances out each other so well once you've used your muscles to relax. And I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
same with fitness in the gym too, like having a yoga practice where you're taking in the benefits even after you train to just like meditate for a bit and taking the benefits of how good you feel after movement. I think that's missed out on in typical fitness.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I had the weight training, I was really getting going with it because it's, it's a strong point for me. And then I could see that my body was starting to want to, I was like trying to fit into this box. Like, I was like, how do these guys just, I don't know how you just walk around with the muscle because it feels so restrictive in some ways if you don't get the energy flowing through the body. The Qigong, as well as I think is a great complement to weight training. It does a lot of this, takes care of the back and everything that gets missed in all this heavy lifting.
Yeah, the point of fitness it should be to be more functional, not to get super stiff and unhealthy, hey?
Right? It's funny.
Yeah.
So you see Ashtanga yoga as being more masculine because it's because it's more physical, right?
More
That
so just like the drive, but I know like we all have masculine and feminine in us. It's not a bad thing. It's definitely something that's, yeah, like more physical and get to the point, driven, kind of hard energy versus like relaxing is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I agree, and it's definitely a system that you work to it. Yeah, cool. Cool, that's really nice.
I had such a good point to mention and it like left my brain. So I'll go to the next question. Oh, when you had like when you're suffering with bulimia, did you find that eating simpler foods was easier for you? Like maybe do you think it was food guilt that kind of caused you to engage in that, or was it more so like indigestion or stomach pain?
It's such a I was going to write a book on it, and my friend said, no, don't write a book on it. I have a huge perspective on eating disorder. Um, no, I have, I was really just struggling with my life, and I could see I was going to hurt myself. I became bulimic because I read in a magazine. I read in a fashion magazine. Oh yeah, I did it, and this is what bulimia is. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. There's always weight issues in my family, so obviously there was already emotional and mental imbalances that way. Um, and my decision to step out of it and not use it as a tool. It's really a coping tool. It's a coping tool in the end. And it's a cry, it's like it's obvious, it's an addiction. It's very complicated. And as well, what I learned through the medical medium is that a lot of people can suffer from this way of coping because they have heavy metals in their body and things happening that you don't even know. You're just trying to like get rid of something's not going right. But I had gotten into it, was just wearing me out. I was in college and it was just like, this is wearing me out. I have to take some months off and just heal. So I approached my parents, and I'm physically pretty like tenacious. You could do, I've been through so much and still just stand up and go, okay, here I am. So it really took a lot for me to see the deterioration of my health and not being able to keep up with the work. And it doesn't help that, yeah, I just had it. I could see I was going to probably kill myself if I didn't get some help.
Were you only binging or were you binging?
Oh yeah, it was binge and purge.
Okay. And was
I don't
it
think,
more so junk food or just any food?
um, well, it was in college, so most of the food served there was junk food anyway. Oh, this was, um, the I think the rhythm that would happen to me would be overexertion, get tired, because this was in high school too, and then take on too much emotionally. And then it would usually be like nighttime binging. And it didn't help that I was drinking in high school and in college. Alcohol and eating disorders don't go together very well if you want to heal. So all of that fluctuation plus you know, anything, you know, my family had diabetes. I had all sorts of diseases running through me. Anything that I was already set up to possibly develop, then that fed into it. So usually it was like an evening thing, but in college it got worse. It could be in the middle of the day. Was it junk food? It definitely wasn't apples and oranges. It wasn't. It was like ice cream and cereal, you know,
Yeah.
very easy. A lot of dairy, which is very addictive. And dairy also feeds these viruses that cause a lot of these imbalances. So this virus kind of takes over the body. So if
Yeah,
anybody's listening,
anything unhealthy in your gut ends up being your craving.
yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also the fact that when you eat those foods, you might also be experiencing lots of blood sugar issues and just hunger in general and malnutrition that drives you to those foods without your control almost.
Yeah, you could be eating, I was eating plenty of food. I have to say I still could see myself looking for healthy food. I was still wanting to eat salad. I still like eating salads. I still like eating fruit and things like that, even more so than anybody else in my family. It's just that once you're addicted to, your mom keeps bringing home corn chips and sweet rolls, and there's all sorts of cereal and milk in the house, and you're hungry, then
Mhm.
it's not balanced out enough to be able to say no to those foods. You know, I was an athlete and I was 4.0 student and everything. So that was my coping and hoping, coping and hoping.
How old were you and how long did it last?
Um, I remember it being like when I was around 17, reading it in this magazine. And this went all the way into college, which was around 21 years old. So it was a good 5 or 6 years. Was my I was fortunate to be able to talk my family into putting me into a residential. I went for 6 weeks to a residential eating disorder. It was good, and that put a nice wedge into my life to be able to take time for myself and take a look at what was going on, and that helped a lot. That helped a huge lot. Yeah, I
It
later.
interrupts the pattern, hey?
Hmm?
Interrupts the pattern.
Well, precisely, especially if it's just like even an alcoholic, you have to want to be you want to heal. You have to say, I want to give this up now. So it helps to have the desire to end, to have it be done, and
Mhm.
two, to have the support to be able to hopefully make those changes. I wound up with anorexia later, but it was not even what people stereotype as anorexia. I just malnutritioned down to like 93 pounds. And that got me in a lot of trouble. But that's where I could agree that it might be some other imbalances in the body that kind of lose track of what's going on in your life.
Mhm. And it can be really intricate, like connected to your gut as well. And just when you're eating those foods, you don't feel as good. You try to cope by like eating less, or people think they need to be intermittent fasting all the time so they don't feel bad after they eat. But when you find foods that make you feel good after you eat, it changes it a lot, hey?
Yeah. Yeah. As long as all that guidance is greatly externalized, then if you're having an imbalance internally, it's hard to find out the right information. Yeah.
Were you able to eat a plant-based diet when you were in treatment?
I wasn't, hadn't,
You
yeah,
didn't
that's
know
a good
about it.
question. I'm thinking if I had given up the meat at that point, I don't recall being like, oh, I need eat a lot of meat. I remember the nutritionist giving like, mm, here's what your diet should be when you leave, which could help, not help. And if there was like chicken and that kind of stuff on there, I don't remember. I wasn't that conscious, like I'm gonna be this way or not be this way. I just can put myself in my shoes and know that my choices usually I still lean towards wanting to have vegetables and fruits and that kind of thing, which is a
Mhm.
great thing to recognize because you can start eating the fruits to get the glucose rather than ice cream.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that really satisfies, so you don't have those cravings anymore. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that I found your page because, like, I was attracted to, like, the spirituality and all of that, but you didn't even mention that you had, like, the passive eating disorder, and I feel like that's where, like, energetics come in, where you can, like, you're attracted to people that are similar to you, and people can just kinda tell, and it's also inspiring to know, like, oh, you can make a life for yourself after going through something like that, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's like a hole that you have put yourself in, but also it comes with a lot of history, I think. And the spirituality and the meditation, um, I really approached it from meditation first, is so key because like we recognize once you kind of make a choice in that direction, if you move your choices of your life 1%, then you've already changed the trajectory of your life a little bit, and you're becoming, it's a matter of consciousness. I mean, a lot of my life is really around the consciousness stuff, and the food I try not to make too important, but I think it's so much fun. I love making beautiful every day. I'm like, oh, look, I did it again. I spent all that time and made some beautiful food. It's so hard for me just to like grab a snack and say, oh, it's still imbalance for me. But
Mhm.
it's a growing connection again, like energetically in your all your little energetic bodies. If you know you have to be exercising because your inner self knows that, your true self, and you listen to it, then you're going to keep listening to the other things that make you strong for who you are. And I don't know anybody, um, well, I've known a very spiritual person who wasn't necessarily eating like what we would consider this great plant-based diet, but it's just one of the tools. It's a strong key, let's put it that way.
Did you heal your eating disorder before you went to a vegan diet or a raw vegan diet?
Um, yes, yes, that was before I got married and everything. So after I got married with my kids, I was still really strongly plant-based. I was still baking stuff. I think it was vegan though when I was baking. I know my daughter's first birthday cake was vegan. It was like a beet cake. So, and that was like 23 years ago. So I know from about 23 years ago that I had been really strongly heading in that direction. So I healed it. I'm trying just to be helpful with how it healed. It really helped to, it took time because it wasn't like I had some online support group or something like that. It took time. Um, and it helped to be able to focus my energy. I studied fashion design and I worked in fashion design in New York City. And I found some sort of balance there in a very imbalanced, very inhumane city. At
Mhm.
least I had my creativity. I could afford to go to the gym. I had some friends that I knew. They were vegan. Some of them were vegan, so that was very nice to be able to go out to dinner to those offerings. So that in itself was a good support system that way. And the bulimia did. I was pretty when I decided it. I had already witnessed how devastatingly detrimental to my energy and health it was, and didn't like how it felt. I didn't like because it gets worse and worse. You're going to have worse health conditions the longer that you're binging and purging. So eventually you're going to have bad bloating and you're going to have bad acne. Your face is going to, I mean, all sorts of bad teeth. So
Mhm.
once those things start to show themselves, it's easy to just say, no, I don't. It's like watching the animals get killed. It's like, I don't want to eat them anymore, you know?
Yeah, because people with bulimia, they think that they're like not having to deal with the consequence, but then it catches up eventually, right? And
Yeah,
the
there's a
worse you
huge
feel, the more you
consequence.
want to go to that coping behavior, and eventually you're like, okay, this isn't gonna work. It's just making it worse, right?
Well, what happens is it's an addiction too. The food's addiction, and then the purging's an addiction because you get this rush of the adrenaline and everything like that. So you really in this really difficult cycle that, again, you need to see the detriments of it that you're causing to yourself and maybe other people in your life, your finances, your anything like that, to just be like, I'm done with it. I'm not going to do that anymore. So it was pretty easy to say goodbye once I had seen the worst of it all.
It can leave you really low afterwards, and that's where people get stuck in that cycle, right? Same with eating junk food. You feel worse after it, and then you go to it to feel better.
Yeah, it's hard to remember that, but yeah, I agree. I think my biggest thing, the last thing I gave up that was an addiction is coffee. I have to say coffee stayed right there with me for, yeah, to certain levels for quite some time. I wouldn't recommend it. I would cut out apple cider vinegar and coffee from your diet. So later
Yeah.
in your life,
But honestly, like that's a better switch. Like if someone's bulimic and they're used to that like high energy or something all the time, to like go to coffee for a little bit and then stop the coffee just to get rid of the bulimia at least. So,
yeah.
it's always
You know what the best thing is? Get yourself a nice, big, huge thing of water. And as soon as you feel funny, just go drink water. That's what I do. If I'm starting to get tired or stuff like that, dehydrated, just drink some water, get a liter in you, and your life clears out. It's again a very root chakra. Um, Water is very grounding that way. So yeah, it's just okay. So the caffeine I cut out because in the healing of the medical medium, the caffeine and the adrenals, that rush we get, which is so really nice, really burns out the liver. And then once eventually your liver is going to be like, I'm not going to function correctly. And that's when you get weird inflammation and fatigue. And that's where you have to start doing the work. It's not just, oh, my stomach. It starts to become a deeper issue. And as you're getting older, things start to slow down. And I've seen some of the conditions I had, I didn't think I was going to be able to reverse, because when you're younger, you can. They seem to flip around faster, but pretty soon it's like, oh wow, I got to really work out to get a leg up on this one thing, like that kind of thing. So the caffeine is a bit of I think I agree, it's a bit of a trick to society. It's going to pull calcium out of your body, which is a hard mineral to get on a raw vegan diet sometimes. And I I wouldn't recommend it. But if so, for somebody with bulimia or an eating disorder, that would be a case by case. Really meet the person and say, yeah, that might be good for you, or no, absolutely, it could still take you in the wrong direction.
exactly.
Yeah.
And what was the thing that helped you to recover from your eating disorders? Do you remember?
Again, it was this consciousness of what I was doing to myself. There was enough of me observing it and feeling it where I didn't want to, um, I didn't want to feel that way anymore. I didn't like feeling fat or bloated. I didn't like, um, where I was spending my time. I started to wake up to how I was spending my time. The anorexia, that was circumstantial. It was more an anorexic diagnosis to just the situation in my life. I malnutrition from not eating enough and really, really high stress. I watched myself go through so much stress that my body started to deteriorate. Um, so we all have to learn how real the stress is too. And to heal from that, from the anorexia, was definitely not what I was given in the hospital from the nutritionist. I was having fights with them in the hospital. They couldn't get me to gain weight. And then once I was starting to choose my food, I gained a couple of pounds. And then they took that privilege away and I lost the 2 pounds again. So it was in eating a lot of fruits and vegetables that I would order from them. It wasn't in beans, it wasn't in more oatmeal, it was eating like more zucchini and a little bit more nuts and things like that, that I felt it more balanced. So the anorexia I healed with mostly raw foods, I'd have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more easy to absorb those foods, and when you're also so anxious energetically, almost from consuming those foods that aren't natural, it just makes it even harder to gain weight.
Yeah, I didn't fall into this thought pattern that I should be eating hamburgers and French fries just to put on weight, because to me, to put on the weight, you'd have to, if you've gone through anorexia, you've deteriorated organs, you've deteriorated your brain. So your body is crying for nutrition and nutrients and vitamins, get a good get these good solid vitamins in you. So you can start the body can had to start rebuilding itself from the inside. And then the weight that you want to put on is muscle. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily you want to get fat, right?
Yeah. Well, the malnutrition isn't just about getting empty calories, right? You need all the micronutrients too.
Yeah, yeah. To rebuild, it's like rebuilding a body.
And it's okay to like not put on muscle at first and like get to a healthy weight, but then being able to rebuild is that's where it's going to be sustainable and healthy, right?
Well, it's easy to look on to other pictures and workouts and see this like, oh, I've built this muscle. But if you're eating a lot of leafy greens or even juicing, like getting some really great hearty green juices in, those are going to feed the cells with the mineral salts that are going to start to build, like even the smaller muscles that are inside your body that we see every day, that have totally deteriorated a bit. So you might not see it, but the muscle strength, like that actual strength of your muscles can start to build before you start pumping bigger weights.
There's so much that happens internally.
Yeah,
And if you're, how many kids do you have?
too.
Are they both still following a plant-based diet?
I hope so. Like I said, I had some issues with their ex-husband, with my ex-husband, with their father. So I have less communication with them now. Um, they were pretty much set on knowing that eating an animal wasn't what they wanted to do.
hmm
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. They were great. They knew for sure that they weren't going to be wanting to eat pepperoni or anything like that. Mm-mm.
Yeah. uh, did you ever have like problems with your hormones then throughout eating disorders?
This is a great question. It wasn't like a focus. Um, and when you talk about hormones, is there any particular one or
Mainly, well, obviously like serotonin and you have a low mood, but I'm talking more so like losing your cycle.
um I had a pretty irregular cycle overall, and that was even before the eating disorder, and I think that was more inherited. So I have a feeling that my family line, I came with the story to have to see what I could do to heal these this masculine feminine imbalance. A woman growing up in a body that's not in a society that's waiting for you to be masculine. So I
Mhm.
think that affected my hormones a lot. Um, so it was never really a consistent period for me. And if I didn't have my period at some time, if I had lost weight, it was probably only for a couple months or something like that. I did, when I went through the malnutrition, I had stopped menstruating, like my late 40s. I was still menstruating. And then when I got healthier recently, right into my 50s, I was having my period regular and it was like normal. So after all these years, like 30 years, to finally know a balanced plant-based diet, I experienced my body at the age of 50 having what seemed like really good normal periods.
What were the changes that you made to your diet? Was it just eating more in general or eating certain foods
For the recovery from anorexia,
to get your period back?
um, it wasn't it wasn't like a goal, it just happened. It was a consistency with quality and balance. Um, precisely.
Do you remember what you were having at the time? Like some people say that you need to include more nuts and seeds, like more fats. Some people just say that you need to just eat enough in general or just be at a healthy weight.
Um, yeah, no, I don't think those are all like one pill solutions, quite frankly. I have a feeling that I have a feeling it has more to do with the high carbohydrate fruit diet with a lot of good vegetables and then some fats. I don't think it's the healthy fats that come in that then uh give you your period. I mean, you
Hmm.
can I don't I everybody's body, maybe they have to have a certain level of body fat on their body for your period to come or go, maybe in your 20s and 30s like that. So I wouldn't say that if you lose your period because you suddenly lost so much weight, and I think it's a matter of rebalancing out those macros and making sure they're high nutrition foods. Um, stress, I think stress is could play a huge thing in anybody losing their period too. So that's never to
Hmm.
be overlooked. As well as how people are playing for themselves, like you bring up the masculine, feminine. If you look really good and everything like that, but your day is really spent um not receiving. You're always doing, doing, doing. Eventually that masculine energy maybe might wear on people's bodies and you kind of lose that. I don't think I know I didn't have like the best connection to the feminine part of me because my external was so go, go, go masculine that it's
Hmm.
to tune into something like that would I think also help for somebody who's concerned about having lost their period or irregularities there. Yeah.
When did you start bringing in more of your feminine energy?
I started to make this distinction. I knew about it. Um, but I didn't really have the tools to mentally make conscious decisions. I had read years ago, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It didn't impact me then, but recently, what maybe a year and a half ago, I started to listen to Dr. John Gray of uh, Mars and Venus, and he has a lot. He's extremely researched with how testosterone works in men's bodies and how estrogen works in women's bodies and the external factors that help nourish those things in ourselves. It wasn't until I read that it kind of again joined two things. Like I was always maybe the last 12 years, 15 years, I was able to make more connection with nature, which is really a base, really a big basis of the feminine energy and recognizing, so I guess about 15 years ago, recognizing that the energy of the earth is feminine and what that feminine energy
A person.
is a feeling. It's a feeling and a softness that way.
One sec. I just need to unplug. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I had to unplug my microphone because it's picking up on like the sound of my house. Oops. And my sister's just getting home, so it's gonna be all loud. But yeah.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah. So about 15 years ago, but then just recently in the last year and a half or so, seeing it even more like to be able to put something into practice. Like if I'm feeling stressed, women feel stressed by smaller things in life. And if you feel stressed and your estrogen starts going down, then there's certain things and activities you can do that to simply just raise your own estrogen. And that's part of the feminine energy. It's so basal in terms of being physiological.
For sure. And did you find that like being more nurturing towards yourself and others was helpful?
Oh, it's huge. I saw one of the biggest changes when I had my kids. I knew very well that I wanted to be active with them and I wanted to be accepting. I knew what I didn't want to do. I did come around to it that way a little bit. Like I knew I didn't want to be walking around the house yelling at them because they had toys on the floor. I had decided within myself that I was going to, if I saw the toy, I would just accept it, pick it up and deal with, process life a whole different way. And that's, to me, that's the compassion. That's compassion to myself, because when you choose to be compassionate with yourself, you decide not to go into anger. You sacrifice your anger feelings to be able to be compassionate in a moment that could be, stressful. So
Yeah.
huge.
Self
Self-compassion.
self-compassion helped me a lot too, because if you beat yourself up for feeling sad, that's when you feel more sad, right?
Yeah, that's a simple way of putting it precisely. You just dig the hole, the hole just gets deeper, doesn't it?
hmm And did you ever have any issues with like osteoporosis or arthritis type issues from restriction?
Um, no, I don't think like with I think I'd probably develop more health issues from overeating animal foods in my life. I think that was the biggest thing. Any bone issues, I feel I went through that whole like apple cider vinegar thing, and I think that and coffee slowly had deteriorated. I had great teeth, and then they just started to fall apart, my teeth. So in my research, what happens is it compounds over your life. In your 30s, your teeth might be great, 40s, and then all of a sudden there's just a point where your body's gonna, if you haven't listened to some of the symptoms and some of the common sense, those little things will start showing up. I don't, probably from the malnutrition when in my 40s when I went through it, I'm sure that I deteriorated myself of certain nutrients. Um, but I think part of my responsibility in that was the caffeine, the things that draw the nutrients out of your body and throw it into an imbalance.
hmm
Yeah,
What do you think help most to be remineralizing your body?
the celery juice
Oh, okay.
and juicing. I had been juicing for a long time. I mean, when I think about it, I was like, oh yeah, I had a juicer when my kids were really young. And before that, so that was like about 20 years. And we would try to make juices. So it wasn't every day, but it was a recognized part of our life. And we were, like I said, eating a lot of green vegetables. Um, yeah, yeah, those green vegetables. And then was able to do at least a good solid year of celery juice every day for 32 ounces. And it's great.
Did you ever do only juice, like juice fast?
No, I was not really good at doing that. Mm-mm. It
I think
was
that's good. It can kind of, I feel like it might shut down your digestive process more than help it.
I don't, it's for a certain kind of
I
thing.
see it more as just like you're saying, like a mineral boost, have some juice in the morning some days, right?
Yeah, to do, I mean, I might have done like a three day, like 3 days, but I'm always so active. It just never felt like it was doing the right thing for me. I was too tired. I have lower blood pressure, so just all the time. I just have low blood pressure, and it doesn't always happen very well for people who maybe have a certain disposition. Just have you done much juice fasting or juice mealing? Because it's not
I
really
find that I'll
fasting.
just like I tried, but I get pretty constipated and you don't feel as good. So like plus for eating disorders too, like it's good to feel full, not to be hungry and thinking about food or craving foods, right? Like that makes it worse.
Well, if there's still an imbalance in the body, then you're really going to feel it on just having juices and trying to lead a normal. I mean, if you can sleep all day, 3 days sleeping and having juices is going to be minimal. That is therapeutic. To me, that's like a therapeutic thing. You have a few really good resting days mentally and everything, and just have juices or warm soups or something. And then
Yeah,
you'll start remineralizing. Yeah.
I just think that there's stages, right? Like it's better for someone to do some days on only fruit, of course, before you jump into that, right? And even
It could
only
be.
fruit could really be something that helps push out all the waste in your body as well and just really easy to digest.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the easy digestion at that point and the calories at that point too
Mhm.
are key because your brain needs it. If you've gone through malnutrition, anorexia, your brain's probably suffered quite a bit. And it's not the healthy fats that's going to take care of your brain. It's going to be the and
That's a
water,
good point.
fruit and water.
I have a couple more questions. One would be, what's next for you with like your online coaching or with your life in general, things, something that you're excited about?
Um, well, I'm excited the direction I have so much information at and things to offer at my website. And I always enjoy making those videos. I find people are, even though there's not a lot of them, people are responding to my recipe videos, my cooking videos. I enjoy making those. I'm excited about that, to keep doing that. I'm working with it's not very exciting. I'm working with my iPhone to see how I can streamline that process. Um, it's fun to do that. And my coaching is just, there's not much more excitement to it. I have a whole entire 3-level course that's really simple. It's not a Bible. It's the very simple steps all spelled out from, decades of experience and knowing what works and what doesn't work for most people. So I would be excited if that was out there and people started to respond to it and say, oh yeah, this is really true information. I have a whole e-booklet that I wrote about losing fat, improving your sexual life, and beyond that. And again, there's some really key things. It's written in a way not to be surface and um, regurgitating stuff that's already out there. It's there to provide information to people who really want to make a change. I recently moved. I'm out more in the country of Mexico, so that's taken some time. It's a very busy life. And I had just finished, I have 2 cats who had kittens, so that's been keeping me busy.
Of course. Do you do some gardening or have any fruit trees?
Thankfully here I've been giving some space and I've been plowing into getting some things into the ground. Yeah, I have some radishes coming up and some tomatoes. I was able to move back into gardening again. They already have fruit trees here, so it's kind of a good setup. It's been hot. So that's very exciting. And I've been fortunate to be able to see that kind of experience before in my life, living in Colorado, living in Vermont, we had gardens, and then living in Ecuador and having the fruit trees and learning about how to grow the fruit trees has been good. But right now it's just a matter of a balance and a little bit at a time with the getting out there to share this information with people. I've gone back to painting more. I have to say I enjoy that. That's my kind of my
You should
root.
share that online. You could voice it over with some information. Put it on
Yeah.
your YouTube videos. Whenever you're talking about a topic, just do you painting instead.
Oh, that's a great idea. I had thought about something like that today. I actually thought, oh, maybe I should, I was like, it may come down to me making another Instagram post just to photograph my work because I definitely am an artist at heart as well. So I guess,
People might want to buy your art as well.
yes, that would be nice too. I'd love to
Have
sell
you
my art.
seen Attract My Passion online? He'll share like his art and then he'll just put a voiceover of all of his intuitive insights at the same time. It's
Uh-huh.
really nice to watch.
No, I haven't seen this. You like this? It's good.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling that it's kind of like actually the cooking videos. Just make the food and watch somebody like making the food, and then I start talking about other stuff that comes up. It's like standing in the kitchen or standing in the studio with somebody, and like it's very calm feeling, isn't it?
Of course. Find
Cool.
people that are so similar to you too.
Yeah, that's helpful. It's really helpful. I think my biggest challenge has been accepting social media because quite frankly, part of it is I could feel when the computer became more and more important in my life in terms of using as a tool. I could feel my posture, no matter how hard, after a certain amount of time, the posture starts to do this with everything in front of us. So that's where I've been very resistant at setting myself down and spending hours on the computer or the electronics.
It's good to have that balance. I as well, like I teach yoga in person and it just brings me out of the screen, right?
Yeah, that's a great balance. It sounds like a great balance for you because I couldn't just, I was wondering, like, do you just like always, people always just sit at their computer, but is that recent for you to be teaching?
The last 3 years.
Oh, that's a pretty long time, right?
hmm
And
But I've
where,
been doing yoga for since I was 10, like 11 years or 12 years every day.
oh, great. Oh, great. What a great foundation. I gave my kids a martial arts. I thought that was, we did some yoga and movement, but we studied Wing Chun, Kung Fu together, and it's really great for the posture and the centeredness. I think anybody in like a martial art, if you're having food issues, you kind of, because they address, again, metaphysical, and it gets down to a real discipline, and it can really help with your own energy. So
I've
I would,
heard quite a lot about it. My dad was into like fighting as a kid, so I have a lot of his books. He has a home gym downstairs. That's what got me into it.
all right. All right.
It's interesting too that you're going to, or that you lived in Ecuador, because I haven't traveled anywhere tropical yet, because I've always been like basically in hospitals. But I am going. My first place that I'm going to is Ecuador, even though it's like 18 hours on the plane, and I'm going in like 10 days
Oh, where are you going?
to Kuala
Qualiqua?
for a retreat.
Qualiqua. It's not Cuenca?
It looks like it's spelled with a Q. Qualiquil looks like.
Oh, oh, Guayaquil. What,
Yeah, that.
are you able to say where you're going to there?
I don't know exactly, but I'll show you. I'll send you it.
Okay, because I think Guayaquil is a town near where I was in Ecuador.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
It might be the same place. I don't know. What kind of retreat is it? Is it
It's raw
yoga?
foods. Raw
Oh,
foods.
okay.
Yeah.
Is it with Fruit Haven or
Uh,
um
they know those people. Like I know them as well. I've talked to them
Terra
on social
Frutas?
media, but I don't know if are they near there?
Are you going to Terra Frutas?
No.
No.
I've been
Okay.
invited to go, but I don't know if I feel comfortable.
Those were the two places I was at. Yeah, so
No.
it'd be interesting to know. And yeah, just uh
Did you put anything on their website on um the where is it called again? Fruit
yeah,
Haven?
Fruit Haven. Well, Fruit Haven, you probably add this out. The actual experience is different than the website. Let's just put it
Yeah.
that way. And it's not just the level of fruit and stuff. It's a matter of the
Conditions, right?
hmm.
Living conditions.
Well, not just the living conditions that you can tolerate, but when it's actually the political way of how things work in the community, it has underpinnings of not being true to what the website brings across.
hmm
So I found at the end it was really difficult for me there, and I would never go back. They
Yeah, I had the same vibe from it.
Okay. Good, you're very smart then.
Were you on their website though? Like a picture of you, do you think?
Probably not. I wasn't their most popular. I was I was doing what they say on the website. Like you can come here, and I was working on mine. I was teaching from my tent,
hmm
teaching English and everything. But I think I was too independent for them. I wasn't too much of they want more,
Control.
yeah, they wanted more slaves, and I wasn't so much of a slave there. So it was a good experience in some ways, but others, but you read into this, so that's good. Yeah, with
hmm
Ecuador, yeah, you see as much as you can to be around good people, and just take your time going through this stuff. You'll be good. It's you'll be good. But your first experience, just stay strong to yourself because it can be tiring. How's your energy? How is your energy at this point? Do you
It's
feel?
been good all the time, yeah. Like I find before I went raw, I would have a lot of highs and lows. Like you're really low after you eat, you're pretty high when you're eating. But then since I've been raw, I usually feel really good throughout the whole day until you're tired in the evening, right?
Right. And your stamina is pretty good, like overall, like you can go off on a hike or something and feel like,
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things for me to know if I'm eating enough is just how I feel like when I'm teaching a yoga class or when I'm doing something active. It's a really good way to check in with your body, hey?
yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would say. Just as long as you notice that in yourself and not give it up when you get there. Hopefully they're really good people where you're going. Because I only know
Mhm.
I know those two places, and then I stayed in Vilcabamba.
Do you know Jordan the Frugivore on social media?
No.
Okay. I'll send you like the info about the retreat and stuff. You can check it out.
Okay, sure. Sure, I'll take a look. I'm interested to learn about it. Yeah.
And there's also like Fit Shorty. They have like 1 million followers on Instagram. They host fruit retreats all year, and I'm going to be going to Thailand or Costa Rica, but that's not till next year because they book a year ahead.
Oh, cool. Really cool. Yeah, I'm not doing a lot of the fruit. I haven't done a lot of going to the retreats and things like that. One, because I was working. I was working, making money and traveling and sick and in the
Mhm.
hospital.
What was the thing that you were in the hospital for?
Well, I had malnutrition myself to where I literally like I passed out once. No, I passed out 3 times. And one time they forced me to go to the hospital. And then the second time they forced me to go to the hospital. I hadn't passed out, but they forced me to go to the hospital anyway. So it
Hmm.
was a little bit not so kosher the way it all happened. Um, and they didn't really solve the problem in the hospital. I was there for 2.5 months. And again, I more or less healed myself when coming out of there.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like I've been forced so many times because I'm a threat to myself, like to my own safety. But then when I'm there, I'm like I feel more unsafe and I get more unhealthy. Then I come home and recover from it, and then you're in that cycle, right?
Yeah, thankfully my cycle was only twice into the hospital. I mean, it was once like I guess I could say I almost died, but I've almost died a couple times other than that in my life, so it doesn't seem like much difference.
What
Um,
caused malnutrition? Like, was this when you were with the eating, struggling with the eating disorders, or more so
no,
like a
this
gut
was
issue?
this was the stress. I was getting a lot of discord from the ex-husband with my kids and trying to sort out some things, and there was something there were people going behind my back and getting my kids' attention and pulling them out of my home.
Hmm.
That was really that was part of the stress. And then it just got worse from there, the stress, and then a court thing. And then they were taken away. And I was working a lot. I was working very physical job, taking care of horses. So literally like wheelbarrowing out miles and miles and miles all day
My
long.
mom has 3 horses, so I've always taken care of horses too.
Great, we have a lot in common.
I know,
So
it's crazy.
I was literally physically overworking myself and not eating enough, but not aware of it because I was just so busy, and I was actually really happy. It wasn't like, you know, I wasn't like I was fat and going, oh, I don't feel good. I was fit and very active and around horses and my kids. So I didn't recognize that I wasn't putting in enough food. Consistent, I guess the consistency. It could be consistently taking care of yourself or consistently eating, under eating that could build into that. So it was the stress and the overworking. But in the end, nobody gave me that credit for that. They didn't say, oh my gosh, you've really overworked and stressed yourself to almost death. No, it was like suddenly I was anorexic and mental. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
who,
same for me. Like I would be doing like too much yoga or too much fitness. You end up in hospital and then you're just kind of like punished for it or not listened to, told you're crazy, which doesn't help anyone not feel crazy.
well,
It's kind of crazy
precisely.
to label someone like that, right?
Well, was this your family stepping in to do this, or were the other outside
Yeah,
people?
I'd say so. Like my mom's a nurse, so she's very like medical
Um,
focused. So that's never gone well.
so it's not just medical, it is very controlling. This is the only way you can do this. And if you're not doing that, then you're You're crazy. You have to fit
Mhm.
a diagnosis, right? You know?
Yeah, like I've gotten like locked in rooms and stuff with nothing, and it's like who wouldn't go crazy if like they have nothing and they're scared that if they react that they're gonna get injected with a medication, right? Like just no power at all.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, that power was totally taken away from me. I even like emailed a friend and he was like, you've lost, I forget, there's some law, international law of human rights. And you're like, he was like, you've lost that, you know, they've taken that away from you. And they obviously do it other places since you've experienced it.
Yeah.
And it's, you must have, what I'm hearing from you too, is you were able to sit and watch this experience in the hospital and just know that, and watch how crazy it was in these places, right? It's
Hmm.
like weird. To me, it was
It's
like,
like a spiritual battle almost. The way that people don't really see what's going on, or they'll do things even though they know it's wrong just because they have to because the doctor told them to. Like all the nurses, they don't even agree with what they're doing, and
yeah,
they couldn't do anything about it. It was just awful.
yeah. Every day I'd just sit there and a new doctor would come in and I would just look at them and go, hello. They'd come to take that blood every day. And I was like, and get mad at me because they couldn't find a vein in my arm. You know, they're like,
Same. Yeah, my veins are too small and rolling, so they'd have to get the nurse in charge to come all the time. And one time they even put the blood or the IV into my artery, thinking it was a vein, and my whole arm just like turned like into a kettle, and my biceps swelled up. It looked like I grew a muscle. It was so painful.
right. And then what kind of composition, what do you call it? What did they do back for you for that, right?
Yeah, they told me to get antibiotics. I was forced on antibiotics, and I fake took them, and
All
then it got
right.
better anyways.
I got a big, huge lump in my arm, and there's still a dent in my arm here from some poor injection, and I got this big lump in my arm too. And it was my fault for some reason. And then I had to do all these antibiotics. My mom was even given power of attorney over me. She was making my health decisions until I finally convinced her to stop. And she was having those antibiotics put through me because they had made a mistake. It was, yep.
Yeah,
We have
it's same with my mom. Like as soon as she couldn't really control me as like an adult, then she just kind of like put me into the hospital system, and now all these rules and regulations are on me all the time, right?
When was the last, but you're done with, but when was the last time you were in the hospital and you were like, you're done with it?
Whenever I'm at a high enough weight, they can't force me into hospital, but I'm still forced for like a couple years, for at least a year, to be like consistently going to appointments every week, which kind of sucks because just being in that energy isn't nice, right? Like every week
Yeah.
having to go get weighed in a gown and just told like, oh, like gain weight if you ever do was basically my doctor's attitude. So it's not very helpful, but whatever. As long as I keep a healthy weight for long enough, eventually I'll be off of extended medical leave, which is what they have me under.
I see. I see. Okay. Well, good. Yeah, I understand. I think it's like, it's just crazy. I've hardly spoken to anybody about my experience because nobody
They
would
just think
even,
you're crazy if you talk about it.
it just, because plus half the people already have the story of what happened to me and decided in their own head. They don't care about what my experience was or why it really happened. They just saw it as some mental diagnosis and that I need to have some sort of, I don't
Yeah, the
know.
labels are really wrong because if you believe that about yourself too, like if I just accepted, like, oh, I'm anorexic, I would create that reality for myself and I would never gain weight if you didn't believe it was possible.
Yeah, it
But
would
when you
be
know that
insane.
obviously, like, you create your own reality, that's where people can step into their own power, right?
Yeah, yeah. They don't provide, the system doesn't provide the actual help you need to heal from it. They don't
Mhm.
understand it. They don't
And if they
understand.
do, it's like a very forced, like, oh, we'll tube feed you to get you weight, get you to a healthy weight, which doesn't address any of the actual physical, mental, emotional issues. But it also just completely bypasses the fact that we need to learn how to do it for ourselves rather than someone just doing it for you, right?
Well, it's better. That's what you're left with, isn't it? If somebody's not there to actually say, look, here, we're going to provide, some food. We're going to provide what you need, or we have this better education, but they don't have it set. And the healing and gaining weight for me was slow. raw foods, juicing, riding a bike. I went to physical therapy. Like they don't even provide the physical therapy. I was in the hospital for two and a
Bed
half
rest,
months.
right?
Well, they had me in the bed because one time they said I almost fell. So then I wasn't allowed to get out of my bed on my own because I was going to hurt myself.
I wasn't even allowed to stretch because it's a injury or because it's exercise, right? And I was like, okay, if I can't do yoga, which was one of my rules, then I can't even sleep because that's shavasana. Doing a yoga pose when I sleep.
We kept our mental. I would stand on my bed and do my qigong.
I got chained to it, like tied down because I was doing exercise in bed.
Because they think you're doing it to burn calories, right?
But really, I'm doing it to like build and to like feel good
Yeah.
mentally, emotionally, and digest the awful food.
Digest the food and it's going to build the muscle. You can't lay in bed and build a muscle. You lay in bed and die.
Yeah. And it's awful because when I got off of bed rest, like you feel like jello. So instantly I just lose the weight right away because it's like, it's just not sustainable weight gain when it's all jello, when it's done so fast and without any physical activity, right?
Yeah, it's not balanced. It's just not balanced. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's getting better, right? It's getting better.
It's a lot easier once you're home and everything's up to you. And of course, it would be nice to have a little bit of a, like what I do for people when I'm coaching them is so they can recover from home, right? Like have that comfort of their own home, but also get the support they need rather than hospital having support, which isn't even really support.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's a huge subject. And well, I didn't go into coaching people on with specifically with eating disorders because I had recovered, but I really feel like that's why it's hard for me to find this target market because I feel like I can really assist somebody who's in that situation, obviously. Um, but I felt like being in that market wasn't, I haven't like done that whole niche marketing. You know what I mean? I'm looking just to be able to help people, and I just not been able to say, oh, I'm going to do this because I recovered from eating disorders. You know, what I'm doing is around holistic health. It still comes down to me saying it's all very holistic. And you need to be able, I can bring people inside with meditation and with these things. But you have to kind of want to do it. And it's more accessible now. Yeah.
I think it's better as you grow your audience to start with a little bit more broad. Like I know some people think it's best to like niche down right away when you have a smaller audience because then people obviously like know who you're talking to. But I think it's actually better to do what you're doing with a broader aspect of health because then if there's someone who's overweight, if there's someone who's underweight, if there's someone struggling with their hormones, like you can help them with all those different things. And also just teaching from your own experience, like you have healed all of those things. So if you just start sharing more so stories of how you healed those different things, then someone will ask you for your help in that area, right?
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, I think just like with the proper diet and fine tuning it, it's a consistency. It's a consistency with, I found when I had gotten a little role of posting a couple of videos a month, and then things started to pick up right away a little bit more. So it's just a matter of having so much to do and making it a priority over other things. And yeah,
Of course.
if your computer does something funky for a while or something like that, then like mine was starting to act up, it puts a little bit of a, makes it problematic.
Have you posted on YouTube Shorts?
I only did one. I did
Okay.
one YouTube short, but that seems to be that way. Does that seem to be picking up?
Yeah, YouTube Shorts I found it's really good. Like I only have around 2,000 followers on YouTube, but I get the most views on my shorts there of any other platform.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And you're making stuff every day?
Yeah. Cause I also like when I was not posting for like 3 years because I took a break, mainly like when I got into raw foods, I just wanted to make sure that that was like a healthy thing before I shared it. and it definitely was. So then I just didn't even want to go back online because I felt so good. But then like you always have that calling when you know you can help more people to go and do that. So
Uh-huh.
I came back to it, but those whole 3 years I was still filming myself because I just love doing it for myself even. So now I just have so much content that I can post even if I'm posting an old thing some days, right?
Oh, great. Great. Yeah. And I I need to get going on it more too. I have the stuff and it's just a matter of these turkeys. Can you see them?
Yeah. I saw I think a cat in the background at one point too.
Yeah, there's cats, there's horses here, there's turkeys, chickens, and
That helps too, having that life, the young life of kids or animals around.
yeah, yeah. It's been hot, but
Especially
I,
as like someone who's like more energetically aware of the energies around you, right?
well, I was in town for about a year in a pretty nice house, and it was almost like I could I don't want to say isolate myself, but it was like I could keep a certain real structure, and there was my bedroom, there was the house, that's where I went to the market, and I kept this, but the sound of the town, like the cars every day, as soon as that started up, I could still feel it in my nerves. So energetically, it really is a lot more soothing, and it's hard to always keep up the the barrier from all that noise all the time when you're trying to heal things that are. I mean, do you feel these things in your nerves, like if you're out in public too much, or if you're in, around big machinery or anything like
Yeah.
that?
Well, even just as a yoga teacher, like you go in and you read the room first, and I can usually feel when people are like heavier and what they need, and then I can balance them by the end. And when I'm at home, like my dad, he usually is just watching the news, like he's really in like that fight or flight mode all the time. And so I've always had to like listen to something like a binary beat or something in my room and just like try to bring my own energy into things. And if I'm outside, there's just lots of like the highway or something, like I'd way rather hear obviously the river rather than the machinery. And then I know, especially going in the grocery stores, like when COVID first happened, just how anxious everybody was. Like it's really easy to kind of sense those things and just the heavier, the fast energy of people, right?
Yeah, you pick up on this a lot too, then. Yeah. This yoga sounds like it really helps you a lot, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. For
Yeah.
you as well?
Well, yeah, like I said, the regaining my strength, since I'm not, and I don't, it's just me and a couple people who, can help me a little bit, but being so quote unquote independent again, I would be happy to have some, a husband or a boyfriend or something like that. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it's a great balance. So, um, but doing the weight training and my muscles, the deep muscles and everything, really back into the strength, combined with the yoga, is really, really, really good, because I had started to lose strength where I felt like, well, when I was sick, I couldn't go out to certain places because I was like, I could maybe walk there, but I don't know if I could get myself back. I had, kind of weakened to such a state. So that's improved, and I wanted to take off and just say, look, I'm going to work on these muscles, and I'm going to work on it, because I didn't even have enough strength to do the yoga. It was going into the gym and actually having to pick up heavy weights and things like that. That's that was able to for me to get back into the yoga, because I was too tired to do yoga.
Yeah.
Not,
That's what feels so good when you can do it again. Just how empowering that is, knowing how far you've come and how much stronger and resilient your body and mind is, hey?
yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, when I ran the first time after like a year of hardly being able to walk, I thought I had just gotten out of a wheelchair. I was like, this must be what it feels like to get out of a wheelchair and heal, to be able to just go and run. I hadn't run. So we have this is so much. There's so much in such a short amount of time. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have to say though, with the whole whatever's happened these last 4 years, that I think I had COVID virus maybe 4 days or something. I maybe had it mildly, but I haven't had any kind of deep sickness like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been sick since I've been vegan, but the one time that I was when the hospital forced me to eat meat, and the day after I got COVID. It was so interesting how my immune system just like shut down.
It's wow. Wow.
I know some of the stories are unbelievable.
Yeah, there's wow. In the
Even
hospitals.
my doctor's advice for when I'm traveling in the next couple of days is eat deep fried food because it kills all the bad bacteria, right? But it kills the good bacteria too.
He said to eat deep fried foods because it kills the bad bacteria.
The safest food to eat because it's fully cooked.
Oh, because it's like, oh my God. I guess that whole eating well cooked foods if you want to avoid foodborne
Yeah,
bacteria
that
is
makes
a
sense,
way
but
to
like
look at
boiled,
it.
right?
What about some spaghetti?
That would be better. A little less oil.
A little bit, right? He
It's
must
been
have
really,
told
really good talking to you. I'm glad that I reached
me
out. You're
too.
definitely a
Yeah,
woman
it's been a
of
long
lots of
time.
wisdom. I do have to go, but the last question that I have for you is if everything that you've created like online, and I don't know if you've done like books or guides, if all of that is destroyed and you can only leave behind like one thing for humanity to see, like for future generations to see, but it's only like one sentence long, what would be that like one lesson or line of wisdom that you would leave behind?
Um, Remember acceptance and forgiveness and listening to each other and yourself.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. I think a
Yeah.
good part of listening to yourself, that's when you can listen to others. And when everybody also is tapped into more of that higher energy, when you're listening to yourself, it's almost the same as listening to others. Does that make sense to you?
Well, yeah, there's so much going on in talking, and when you listen from your heart, and you can actually feel your heart, and you're activated your heart and know it, then that's more pure existence with the
Mm-hmm.
eternal you. And
Yeah,
that's where the
exactly.
wisdom comes
There's a
in.
higher knowing. It's hard to put words to it or to understand, but definitely something brought us together today, too.
Yeah, it really seems like that. This was a great opportunity I was looking forward to, and I'm really happy to meet you, even though you're so far away, and you're about to go to Ecuador. Feel free to stay in touch, and if you want to ask me questions while you're there, please, because I was there a couple years.
Okay.
When COVID started and anything like that. Don't feel shy about it. This
Okay.
you gonna put this interview on YouTube?
Yeah, I'll share it on Instagram and on YouTube.
Okay, this should be
Or maybe
interesting.
just like clips to Instagram and then the whole video on YouTube.
Okay, and maybe we can do something for my channel at
Yeah,
some
I'll
point.
send you the clip and you can post it on yours as well.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. And yeah, this is great. I'm really, really happy I got to do this. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing your
I hope
social
you start
media.
doing more interviews as well because I'd love to listen to more of your story and I'm definitely going to keep watching your videos.
Well, it's as you can see from my YouTube channel, I haven't spent a lot of time sharing about me and my
Yeah,
journey or anything like that. So
that's the
I
most important part. Like people don't want to be told what to do. They want to hear from your story and then they pick it up and they say, "Oh, I'll try that too." They don't want to be told like, "Do this for your health." They want to hear, "I did this for my health." And then they say, "Oh, I should do that too." Right?
okay, I'll believe you.
I
You're
got that tip.
smarter. You're
Um,
smarter in that than me.
no, you've had many more years of experience.
I've gone through the bumps and the rocks. You have too, but I have had a lot more years, that's true.
Exactly. That's what people want to hear from. So I would definitely encourage you to be vulnerable and share those things. That's going to help a lot of people and resonate.
Okay, Jen. Well, let's go because it is been a long time. I
All
really
right.
enjoyed
Thank
this.
you.
Thank you,
Have a good day.
sweetheart. Yeah, you
Bye.
too. Bye bye.